Harman Phoenix is a new color negative film released by Harman Technology, also known as the parent company to Ilford Photo, the Ilford that we all know and love, and not Ilford Imaging, which is responsible for whatever the hell this is. Harman Technology owns the rights to produce black and white film under the Ilford brand, whereas Ilford Imaging, which is a completely separate business, owns the rights to sell color film under the Ilford brand, which explains why Phoenix is sold under the Harman brand and not Ilford. Anyway, this isn't some respooled Kodak Aerocolor Vision 3 racket, but instead a brand new color emulsion made by Harman. This is their first foray into color film, and by no means a finished product. It's a limited edition film used to work out some of the kinks, and to reinvest the profits into further R&D and hopefully more color film in the future. Anyway, what does the film look like? Well, that don't look right. Normal C41 film usually looks like this, with a distinct orange mask, whereas this base reminds me of underfixed black and white film. For black and white film, the base color doesn't matter too much, but for color, this base can and most likely will cause some issues when it comes to scanning. Yeah, most scanners and scanning software are designed to automatically compensate for the orange mask, and from my experience, my uncorrected scans came out warm, but it wasn't that hard to correct. I think the extra warmth actually worked for some of these shots, but I do like how some of these corrected shots also turned out. I'm not sure which I like more, but it is nice to have this flexibility to choose. When Harman released the film, they also published a data sheet, and they included a spectral sensitivity chart, and a bunch of you sent me this. If you're not familiar with these charts, generally speaking, this shows you how sensitive the film is to certain wavelengths. For instance, this section shows you how sensitive the film is to the color green, and this section is for the blues, and this one for the reds. Beyond the reds is near infrared, meaning this film has some sensitivity into the near infrared. The problem is it doesn't look like it has a whole lot. If you were to photograph this normally, any visible light would easily overpower the infrared that might have been captured. But you could use an infrared pass filter like this R72 to capture some of the infrared light. The problem is this filter only starts to pass light at around 720 nanometers. Meaning, with a combination of this film and this filter, there's not a whole lot there to be captured. And this is what this is. I used an R72 filter and shot it at box speed. Obviously there's not a whole lot there. And this was overexposed by 1 stop. And this was 2 stops. It's hard to see on camera, but there is something there. It's very faint. But then when I overexpose it by 5 stops, you're able to see something. It's not the best result, but I did use it, and I also trichromed it. Couple of things. First, is this actually infrared? With this one example, it's hard to say. The R72 filter is not magic. It doesn't just allow only infrared light to pass. It does bleed some visible red light, which might be what was actually captured here. Second, I only have this one proof of concept example because I live in the Pacific Northwest where it's currently wintertime and the skies are perpetually gray and cloudy, so not the best circumstances to try infrared photography. I've also tried this with Portra 800, which has far less sensitivity into the infrared, leading to mixed results. This film base isn't quite clear, but more so than your normal C41 film, which begs the question, what would happen if you cross-process it in E6? You get blue. Generally speaking, when you cross-process C41 film in E6, you need to compensate by 2 stops somewhere, either by overexposing or overdevelopment. But I also know that when I cross-processed Kodak Aerocolor, which also had a clearish base, it didn't need any compensation. So with that in mind, I decided to bracket all of my shots. One shot at box speed, the other overexposed by 2 stops. And the results were kinda iffy. It seems like anything in the highlights got blown out and anything in the shadows got crushed. None of these shots seem to really land on the right exposure. If anything, a 1-stop overexposure might have been the sweet spot. Sometimes when I cross-process C41 film, I would get results that look similar to this, with a strong blue cast and everything, and sometimes with just a little bit of post-processing, I could get some of the colors back and make it look a little more normal. But not with this stuff. What you see is what you get, and your scans are true to the slides. If you really like the moody blue cast with no dynamic range, then this is the stuff for you. Otherwise, just buy actual slide film. Anyway, I decided to bleach bypass the next roll. So I accidentally left the ISO dial at around 100, overexposing about half the roll, and here are those shots. I hope you like blown out highlights. Normally, when you bleach bypass, you'd want to underexpose, so having it overexposed just by even one stop is enough to just blow out everything. But when shot at box speed, the results are way more usable. It still has high contrast, no dynamic range, just your classic bleach bypass stuff. Finally, I decided to redscale a roll. I used some old chemistry to develop this roll, which I think explains the deeper purple base. I was kind of hoping that maybe something funky would happen, but it just looks like regular redscale. Overall, for a first attempt at color film manufacturing, this is amazing work. More color film manufacturers will always be a good thing, and I hope the folks over at Harman are encouraged by their hard work and keep progressing. I'm really hopeful and excited to see what they could come up with next. In the meantime, if you value your money and your time, just shoot it normally. You'll get better results that way.